everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Sexy Business Podcast. As always, I am your lovely host, Lewd Neko, and joining me is Spooky Dangerous.
Ahoy!
And today is going to be, I guess, our end of the year game of the year, except for not really because we're counting games that we played this year. We're not actually going by release date. But what it does mean is that basically me and Spooky are going to talk about sort of our top fives of adult games we played in the last year.
That's right. And I think we have kind of spicy lists. We don't overlap at all. Neither of us have picked the same games. Um, all of mine had an update this year, but are longer running games than that, if that makes sense. And I played an update this year gone. Some of it has shown up on the podcast, some of it hasn't. Some of it we've just mentioned on the podcast and hasn't had its own episode. So if there is something on this list that you would like us to do a deeper dive into later, obviously it's one of our favorites and we would be excited to do that. So sound off in the comments. But do you want to kick us off with number 5?
Sure, and this is probably a really fitting one to kick off with. So number five for me, and this might be a shocker, was Max Gentleman Sexy Business, of which the sexy business part of our podcast name comes from. Um,
That's right.
so I played this one, I think in the spring. I had actually only streamed it once, like I think actually like a year or two ago, and it just wasn't really a good stream game because it's a business simulator, and those aren't always the sexiest to watch someone play, even though they're really fun. So I ended up playing a lot of it in my off time. I have like 30 or 40 hours in it because I love a good business simulator. And this one isn't too complicated. It's not like insane levels of like, min maxing and management, but it has just enough mechanics and just enough of a difficulty curve as you go through the various levels to still be engaging, especially on your first playthroughs where you're still figuring stuff out. And on top of that, as the name implies, it has sexy content. Now, the sexy content isn't necessarily the focus of the game, but it has NSFW outfits that you can earn for the various business people you interact with in the game. It has some CGs you can unlock by basically getting enough heart points with them. And it even has erotica, like erotic fan fiction between some of the characters you can unlock, which is pretty cool. Another thing that's nice if you are bi or pansexual is that it has characters of male and female persuasions, so you can enjoy, at least for me, I got to enjoy all of the stuff. It also has a pretty diverse cast. You've got everything from like little tomboys to like big titty goth girlfriends to extremely buff men. You got some bears, some goth men as well, representation. So there's a little bit of something for everyone to explore and have fun with.
That sounds hype. And it is also true that that is where the sexy business part of the sexy business podcast name comes from. Honestly, it's hard to name a podcast, and I think we picked okay. But that moves us on to my number 5. My number 5 is The Last Romantic. It was a really interesting game. When I first played it, it was like a really early release. And I came back and played it a little bit later. The story for it is kind of generic. You're a student and you're doing poorly and you're about to fail and stuff. And kind of the arc is that you need to study and get all your grades up and stuff like that. But every single character that's not you is just like ridiculously sexy. A tutor gets hired for you and she's got massive knockers. Your aunt, I think, or someone that lives in the house with you, also is like really hot. And then like there's your neighbor that's like doing yoga out in the backyard and you can peep on her. Like just like the classic kind of vibe, I guess. It's got a similar art style to stuff like Summertime Saga, but I think I prefer this a bit more. Summertime Saga has like weird faces, I find, and they're a bit gremlin and a little bit samey for some characters. So they have to have really defining traits in like hairstyles and stuff to differentiate them. Whereas I think this one actually has like a really smooth, flatter style that I much prefer. and it has like this really weird come build up mechanic as well. We have to manage how much you have. It's just kind of a goofy game
Hmm.
all around. And the only reason that it slid in at number 5 on my list was the fact that the art quality is just really, really high.
I mean, that's an important factor in an H game. It's going to be 90% of what you care about, so.
Especially if I'm playing it paused. Alright,
All
kick us
right.
off with your number 4.
Number 4 for me is Third Crisis, which some of you might be familiar with. It's a relatively popular H game. It's been in development since 2020, though its full release did come out in 2024. I had sort of been avoiding it for that reason. I don't always play games in early access. There's a part of me that's like, I want to save the surprise for when the cake is finished baking. I don't want to just shovel the half baked dough into my mouth. And I'm kind of glad I waited for Third Crisis. I haven't even really played through a ton of the content yet. I have 20 hours. Some of that was on stream, some of that wasn't. A lot of it was exploring one of the bad endings of the game, so I haven't seen all of the like good ending content. I was more focused on seeing how fucked up I could make the main character, and I had a lot of fun with that. It's got a lot of things I like, so it has a ton of art. Including animated art, and you get a little bit of moaning here, lots of different outfits. I'm a huge outfit slut in H games. I love when I can dress up my little character as whatever I want. You got all sorts of different characters. You have some like male and female scenes. There's also some Fuda characters. You've got all of the sci-fi fun kinks and fetishes you can imagine. And the actual gameplay is pretty okay. There's like a fighting system that I feel kind of meh on. It's not bad, but it's not great. But you also don't have to spend a ton of time with it. And then the actual like side questing in the game is like pretty fun overall, seeing how you can unlock all of the various things that the main character can do. So it's one that I think, especially in its current state, I would say is a pretty good recommendation. It has a demo, which is a nice thing as well. But if you're into sort of like H game RPG, like if you like RPG makers, this is like one that's actually well done.
Mm. Yeah, I've seen a lot of some of the stills and stuff of it, and it does actually look like it might be the best RPG Maker game.
Yeah, I don't know if it's actually made an RPG Maker, but aesthetically, it does have like
Has
some of the
that vibe.
visual similarities. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, so my number 4 is a game called Confined with Goddesses. It's a little bit more like a visual novel in, except that you're kind of picking how you're spending the time of the day, and you can spend time with the different characters that you are confined with to fill things out. And there's like a minor RPG elements where you have stats and you have money and stuff like that as well. But it's not super impactful to the game. This is one of the few games that I did 100% complete. I think it is very, very good. The art quality is really, really high and has really, really good animations. The story is a little bit goofy, but basically, you are in kind of like a COVID lockdown, kind of, because there's a drone outside your house that will shoot you if you leave, or something like that. There's a drone outside your house, I know this for sure. And then you're there with, it's kind of like two MILFs. It's like your stepmom, some other MILF, and then like your I don't know, girlfriend's best friend, I think it is. And then you're basically choosing who you're spending the different time with, doing different activities with them, and then you're slowly filling up the heart meter and like that kind of thing. And then you get to do like all just the scenes are like really, really good quality. And I just think like the actual way the game is developed as well is really, really good. It has like a full menu that shows you how far to complete you are for each of the characters' routes, and also a hint for what the next thing is, so you're never really lost and wandering. And also, there's like a full scene replay for each of the animations. But it's like thematic, and it's like you have a nap and you dream about the things that you've seen already and stuff like that. So it has like really good immersion with the way that the game's put together. And they're actually working on kind of like a sequel. It's something Divine Heal, I think it's called. which I played the first 5 minutes of, and that was all that there was when I played the first release. So I'm looking forward to that one being completed as well. But that's my number
Ooh.
four, and I think that it's a banger. I do think that's worth checking out.
All right. Well, moving on to our top three. So starting with number three, mine was a bit of a surprise for me. I'm doing Hush Hush. So many of you are probably familiar with Crush Crush or Blush Blush, which are both those anime clicker games with the cute girls or cute boys where you click and click and click and pay lots of money to get the little CGs with them. And those are adult games. They do have unlockable NSFW content, but do not like clickers. I hate clickers. I'm a clicker hater. So I could not ever convince myself to time sync into those games, even though I was really interested in their art and characters. And then comes along Hush Hush, which did release in 2023, though it got an update in 2024 with a new route, though I actually haven't played that one. And this is a proper, like, actual dating sim. And when I say dating sim, I mean like classic dating sim where like you have stats. You have to earn money so you can buy things for the girls. You have to manage a schedule. And normally, I really don't like those kinds of games. I find them very tedious, oftentimes very frustrating because they can have like sort of arbitrary difficulty. But Hush Hush really manages to pull it off in all ways. A couple of highlights. One, it has some really nice art. All the character sprites look great. There's tons of awesome CGs. The NSFW art is a little for me. It's just very generic anime sexy girl, which isn't really interesting to me, though I think people, especially if you have a strong attachment to these characters already, are probably going to like it maybe more than me. They are kind of animated. They have that live 2D like wiggle to them. Um, but one of the big highlights for me is that this game is fully voice acted. Every single line of dialogue from every single character is voice acted, and this made the experience wonderful. I didn't really have complaints about any of the characters. Even some of the characters, like there's a cat girl who has sort of potentially more annoying voice. I really still liked her performance overall. There's also like I liked that the male characters were voice acted, since typically in these kinds of games they will just save money by not voice acting any of the male characters, and I appreciated that sort of detail. And then lastly, the story is actually really good. I did have some kind of critiques with like I think they could have pushed it a little bit further, but this is not sort of a generic just like, oh, go on 5 cute dates. There is an overarching plot. There are good and bad endings. There is a sort of morality system, and it was actually really fun and rewarding to see what happens when you are evil. There were some really shocking parts where I was like, I killed a certain character, and I was like, holy crap! I did not think I would actually be allowed to murder this side character. Of course, I didn't get good ending, so I had to go back and do that. But it wasn't even tedious to do that. So if you already enjoy this series of games, I would highly recommend it. And even if you don't really enjoy Crush Crush or Blush Blush like me, if you are a fan of a dating sim, or if the idea of a fully voice acted game with some good humor, some fun choice mechanics, and some cute romance, I would highly recommend this one.
I think it's really funny that you were like, yeah, I totally murdered this guy. I was completely evil, and then I didn't get the good ending, so I had to replay the game. It's deeply funny to me. Um, but my number three is actually something that we covered on the channel. So is my number two, actually. My number three actually goes to Orc Massage. When I was thinking about my list, I was looking at specific characters that I really did like looking back on it. And for Orc Massage, the first and third character. So I didn't actually engage with the second character, the harpy. The first character, the elf, and the third character, the tiger cop, are like very much my wheelhouse. Orc Massage itself as a game is kind of goofy. It doesn't like the actual gameplay itself is kind of just click on things. There isn't too much strategy that goes into it, and at least part of it is a rhythm game. But playing it itself is you're just kind of like, okay, how do I speed run to titties? Um, and I really liked the tiger character. I think she's insanely well designed, and I just love a grumpy bitch in general. And so she kind of fits that really well. And the elf character that you get at the start is kind of the same. And I feel like the way that, not storytelling, but like the way that the characters interact with you over time is done really well. I really like the, oh wow, you did a good massage, I will come back. Oh wow, you did a real good massage, I will come back, and stuff like that. And it was just like kind of, because it's like I'm playing it for the show as well. I'm like, I need to do everything. I need to see everything, and I just skipped a whole character because I'm like, damn, this character seems way cooler. You know, I'm gonna go and look at them, um, and stuff. It like is a good sign, right? Like, oh, you know, this must have hit. Like, this must have been a big one. And I think the art is really good for 3D models, right? We don't actually cover that much 3D model stuff. Me personally, I don't interact with that much 3D model stuff because I much prefer high quality 2D art. And for this to be a game that was a 3D model one, where I was like, wow, actually all these characters are bangers, was really good. Like it's telling, you know. When I'm normally a hater, for something to convert me like that, I think is a good sign. And look, I just enjoyed it a lot. Also, shout out for them just having a gigantic dude protagonist. It's not very common. I think we joked about it at the time. It's kind of like the ugly bastard trope. We don't really see it that much. A lot of times, the guy is just like kind of a see-through cutout of a human. And so it was just funny to see the dude be like, "Yeah, I'm huge. That's kind of the thing." And then old lady's like, "Oh my god, I love that you're huge." And he's like, "Okay, I just wanted to work here. I'm just doing my job, lady. Trying to give you a massage. That's what you're paying me for." And she's just really into that or whatever. I don't know. I just think it's a fun game, and I appreciate how it all comes together. How it all comes together. Um, do you want to rescue me from this monologue by telling me about you at number two?
Okay, yeah. So for my number two and my number one, these are both games that did not release in 2024, and I technically started playing them at the end of 2023, but I played most of them in 2024. I streamed both of these. So my number two is Evanical. So Evanical is a pretty well-known game. It's by Alicesoft, who's one of the major Japanese H game companies. I had played Dona Dona previously, which is a newer game by them, and since I had so much fun with that one and people responded very well to those streams, I decided to try out Evanical, which is like one of probably, I think, the most broadly appealing of their games. So Evanical is a JRPG mixed with a kind of visual novel harem building sort of game where you play as Asterisk, aka Aster, who is basically on a quest to get as many wives as he possibly can. For lore reasons, in this universe, you cannot have sex unless you're married. Otherwise, you basically become a demon. This is something that is actually explored in the plot. And so he has to basically keep leveling up as a knight because knights are allowed to have more wives because they need to pass on their good genes, basically. So essentially, each chapter you get like a new wife or two. You get to see the wives interact, which is really cute. Like it's actually some healthy polyamory in here, which I appreciate. I was kind of surprised by. Now there is also a lot of dark content. I mean, one of the first H scenes you see is a pretty brutal, non-consensual scene, and I'm not talking about like, oh, it's sexy non-con, wink, wink. Like, no, this is very sad and upsetting for a lot of people. And that doesn't really set the tone, but it does show you that this game is going to go to some really fucked up places. So be warned, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. You know, go on the visual novel database and read those tags carefully. You can even go on Steam. Somehow this game is on Steam, which I don't understand. But they have a mature content description, and I'm not even going to read it out loud because I think if I say this many words,
Oh
like YouTube will
no.
just ban this video. So, with that said, it does actually have a really good story. Like the world building is pretty interesting. The lore behind like why they have this weird rule around sex. The gameplay is like not the most engaging. If you're like a JRPG fan, I don't think you'll be impressed, but it was never tedious. I never felt like I had to grind for hours. It was like just enough to be something to sort of keep you engaged without sort of taking away from the sexy focus. And there is, like I said, like so many different sex scenes. There's all kinds of different waifus. So no matter what kind of waifu you're looking for, there's one of them in there. It explores some different kinks and fetishes. So if you like that kind of stuff, there's something for you there too. So I would definitely highly recommend this one, especially if you've never played an Alice Soft game. I think this is probably the best entry point to figuring out whether or not you like their stuff.
Yeah, interesting. I probably could have guessed that you had something super dark in your fucking in your top five. Knowing you, but my number two, I think, might be a surprising pick. It's actually My Pig Princess. I am not, like a big furry enjoyer. For me, it's kind of just the same as everything else. Um, but Cyan Capsule, the artist for My Pig Princess, I think is possibly one of the most talented artists that we actually have in this space. Um, and the character Emily is kind of not like well known, but like was developed a lot before the game exists. And the game does, like, my only real criticism of it, it has like really weird detracting moments from it, where it has like a fully fledged out rock paper scissors mini game, or a fully fledged out wound treating simulator in it where you have to patch up this brawler guy. And some of that stuff isn't super necessary. It doesn't exactly get me rock hard, but a lot of the other stuff they do put in it, I think, is done really, really well. The art quality is insane, and goes into a lot of detail and fits cohesively together with everything, because the same artist does the characters, does the backgrounds, does all the designs, does all this kind of stuff. And when you have a one person studio like that, all of the ideas fit flawlessly together because you're not trying to communicate your thoughts across multiple brains. You can actually paint everything together. I think it works really, really well in this case because it helps sell this universe where you're the only human from memory, and you've just been taken out to this kingdom where the ruling hierarchy is pigs, but you get to encounter a bunch of other furries, including zebra, hippo, chicken. I think she's a chicken, and stuff like
Yeah.
that. And you get to interact with these characters and engage with them. And like the chicken is like a scholar, and she's like, I want to learn more about you because we don't know super a lot about you, but here's what I know about animals and stuff like that. And like the way that you're introduced to the lore and the way that the world works is really interesting. And it kind of feels like it could have been distilled into three separate games, like a really intense story driven thing where you're exploring and learning about all these people, like an Alice in Wonderland type thing. And then like a just intense porn game, which is like all the really high impact scenes, which are like really good. Have routes in them where you get to choose the different things that you want to do, and your choices matter in future things. Because like if you do butt stuff with Emily, then she's more receptive to doing it later and stuff like that. Um, and then the third part, which is the mini games, which could have been, I don't know, more focused on them rather than being a random tangent. And like we said in the review episode when we did it, maybe it's something that is developed upon later because it is not a complete game. It's only like zero point 0.6 or zero point 0.7 or something, which I think is really interesting. I'm really excited to hear about the future of how this goes because I really like it. I think the character design is fantastic. I think the art quality is fantastic. I'm excited for more.
All right. Well, that's going to take us into our number one, our game of the year. Mine is Harem Hotel. If you watch my streams, I don't think this is a surprise. Again, this is not a game that is even done yet. It's technically on version 0.18. And I did start it sort of in the fall, I think, of 2023, but I played so much of it in 2024. It's probably one of my longest series, if not my longest. I fully voice act the entire thing when I stream it too. So it's been quite a challenge, I should say. But I've really enjoyed every second of it. I had heard of this game way back when I first started streaming. Someone recommended it to me, and I heard the title, and I looked at the store page and was like, "Oh, this is an asset flip of like Honey Select, where all the characters are made in it and all the CGs and stuff." I was like, "It's probably not that good." And it had like harem in the title. It sounds kind of generic. I'm like, whatever. Maybe I'll get around to it eventually. And then I finally started playing with it, and I really fell in love with this game. I enjoy all of the waifus. There's definitely some I enjoy more than others, but I didn't really have any like problems with any of the waifus, which is always sort of one of the problems with harems is like when you don't like certain members of the harem, but you have to have them there. It also has a really interesting overarching plot. There's a lot of stuff about sort of there's an elf race that's treated as like slaves, so they deal a little bit with that. All of the characters have unique backstories where they have like personal issues to overcome. There's even some like genuinely like, tear-inducing moments. You're gonna need your tissues for more than just that. Um, and the sexy content is also definitely there. There's lots of fun outfits, lots of fun sort of scenes and scenarios, great animations, and they're getting better as the game develops, which is great. And there's so many unique images just to begin with, both safe for work and not safe for work. And I have to highlight one of the best characters of like adult gaming ever, Lynn from Harem Hotel. She is like one of my favorite waifus of all time, which is crazy because she's from like a very niche adult game. But I literally cosplayed her for Valentine's Day last year, or yeah, last year technically, 2024. It got retweeted by the dev, which was like amazing. I was like, oh my gosh, he's seen me. Um, and then they even did a run of 3D prints of Lynn this year, a kind of limited run on Patreon. And I do own one of them. I haven't painted her yet. That's going to be sort of my winter break task, I think, is to get that painted. But she's a maid. She's an elf. She's a service submissive. I both want to be her and would want to like kiss her all over.
That's really cute. So my number one, I don't think it's actually a game that we've talked about before. But my number one is Lord Goblin. It's pretty new actually, and it's developed by B Ben. I think is the name of the guy. Basically, the plot is you are a goblin servant at some not like witch like sorceress's castle, and she casts this spell and it goes horribly wrong, and then you as the goblin servant um, basically are forced to swap places with her, and so she
Ooh.
is forced to be your slave, and you're the Lord Goblin. You become the king of the estate. Um, and it's not like a wish fulfillment thing. She actually is aware of everything that happened before and aware of the power shift, and she reluctantly does everything that you tell her to do because she has to. And there's also three other manor staff there as well, which are all like hot girls, and they like do tasks and stuff. And the way the actual gameplay is you're managing the house. You're instructing the different girls to do different tasks like laundry and cleaning and cooking and all that kind of stuff. And it has stats, but it's not like stats for your character. It has like stats for how well things are being run, how much laundry is built up or whatever and stuff like that, and the happiness of the citizens and this kind of thing. But every couple of days, I think it's like towards the end of each week, you have to perform a sexual act in front of the portal to stop a ritual from going bad and making horrible things happen. And basically, you get to select one of the different people, either like the sorceress who's your slave, or like some of the different working girls to come and help you out with that. And at the start, they're obviously like super reluctant, but like have to do as they're told. And then like over time, they're like, oh my god, how is this tiny goblin's just meat so huge? And like they get more and more into it and stuff, and you persuade them to be more. And like that's how you kind of unlock more scenes as you go along. And it's still like early in it, so there isn't super a lot there. But I think it just as a concept, it was delivered upon really well. The art's really good. The actual management type stuff is you have a bit of control over it, so that you can do all of the like not sexy things and then stack a couple of sexy things together. If that's when you're like, finally I'm gonna crank my shit and shoot ropes, then you kind of can schedule that in there into the fun. and I do actually like the character designs for it. They do have like an interesting mix of characters, and so I am really looking forward to seeing how. I think it hits the number one spot because I think it shows a lot of promise. I'm looking forward to seeing what more comes out of it. Whereas with the other games, like The Last Romantic was really early in development when I played it, but I think that it's going to just consistently be of the same kind of quality. Like the gameplay was kind of whatever, but like the characters were really good, and I think it's going to continue to do that in the same way through. Orc Massage, I don't know if that's ever going to receive another update. Confinement Goddesses is complete, and My Pig Princess, I think slowly updates every couple of months. But I think Lord Goblin shows the most potential in what it can reach and achieve, in how it can come together. So I will be watching this one closely. I'll be really interested to see how this one comes together. But, and I'm really proud of us for this, we managed to hit hour 30 without running over too much. We did really well. This is something that we tend to worry about when we do tier listed type videos. We tend to run a bit long, and we were trying to keep it punchy. We do like our punchy podcast. And if you like our punchy podcast, the thing that you can do is hit the like and the subscribe button. When you click those buttons, we get to have a happy Neko in the office. You get to hear that bell ring when you ring that bell for notifications. And that's something that we look forward to, because when we're seeing the big number, we get happy about it. As we did recently hit 200 subscribers, we're very happy about this milestone and excited to hopefully reach forwards and grow more and explore what more we can contribute to the NSFW space here on the Sexy Business Podcast. So we're hoping that we'll be seeing you next week. We have some more cool things for you to discover in the industry here on the show. So make sure you stick around, and we'll see you then.
Bye bye.